Hi, this is Astrology Intuition with Amy Lynn. I'm here to talk about the astrology for the next couple of weeks based in the lunar cycle, where we look at the new moon to the full moon and what's happening over the next couple of weeks. And I will start with an overview of how the energy feels. Just less of the technical astrology details. I'll get into those at the end of the podcast for those who like to track at that level of detail. But I'm just mostly going to talk about how the energy is feeling and will be feeling, and what we can do to best work with the energy as it is happening in this way. And first, I do want to tell you that I have several ways, it's not too late, where you can grab some support from me to get through this big year. This is a huge year, astrologically speaking. I have, okay, let me list everything here. I have an online platform this year. I have a free 2026 preview that's available at the online platform. The platform is called Here and Now, and it's very much focused on the energetics, less the astrology details. I'm trying to be more holistic about this to help those who aren't as fluent in the language of astrology, because I really think it's important that we're all tuning more into frequency and into our own intuition and sensing the subtle energies. And astrology is one way to get the framework for that. But you have to kind of start with feeling and sensing it first for yourself before we layer in all the details for those who don't have the language fluent yet. So I will put the link in my show notes to Here and Now. There's a totally free 2026 preview. There's a video of me talking. I have a guided meditation there. I have a downloadable PDF of a tarot card pull I did, a different card for each month. In addition, I have a couple of tangible items that I'm very excited about. I have a guide that is for the year that has your chart in it, and it calls out the four eclipse points and all the energies that are going to be activating us and changing us based on your personal chart. And the eclipses are coming before we know it. The first one's February 17th. I'll have a link to that down below. That is $33 plus shipping if you're not here local. And then I have a quarterly planner that has been just a labor of love, where it takes you through the first 3 months of the year. And even though we're in just past mid-January, all the astrology in January is really happening at the end of the month. So you have not missed anything. And this is a beautiful, hand-designed, intuited astrological energy notes throughout, and the planner covers 3 months, but it takes you week by week and then slows you down into the new moon and the full moon cycles that are happening over the next 3 months, how to work with those energies more practically using your chart, using a layout of your week at a time kind of energy. And then I also pulled in these longer lunar gestational cycles that are 27 months of time. So that every time we have a new moon, we're starting a new 27-month cycle. And every time there's a full moon, we're landing 18 months into that cycle. And there should be kind of a completion or a release or a fulfillment of something going back 18 months before. So the guide also teaches you how to work with these cycles. I have two different sizes. I have a bigger, beautiful, I'm calling it the altar edition. It's like something you can really keep as part of your sacred practice. It's 11 by 17 and it's $44. The smaller version, it's letter sized and it's going to be available on Amazon as soon as they check yes, which is like any day now. So I'm going to put the links to all these things in the show notes so that you can grab them. I am still doing some year ahead readings. I don't have a lot of space for individual personal readings, but I have a couple slots in February, and I will also put the link to book those with me. And if you want to share a spot with someone, if that helps you with the accessibility of working with me directly, I'm happy to do 2 or 3 people in a group setting and do a reading, a 90-minute that would have to be, that's then kind of split for everybody, financially speaking. Okay, so let's jump into what these energies are feeling like. You know, the first half of January was kind of its own thing. And then we had this new moon in Capricorn on January 18th that kind of is this midpoint energy of the month, the calendar month. But also, you know, the sun always changes signs somewhere around like the 20th or so of each month. So I find that months always kind of have a feeling of the first half and the second part or something like that. It's not exactly in the middle. But when the sun sign changes, the vibe changes. And so each calendar month has that where the end of the month is just like a different energy. And we are super in that vibe right now as we're shifting into Aquarius season. So the last weeks of January, which is the next lunar pattern until we get to the next full moon on February 1st, but the last 2 weeks of January have a very like a specific arc to them. We begin with this, we're coming out of the grounded Capricorn new moon that still felt pretty edgy and shaky for how Capricorn energy usually feels. But it gave us kind of like our last chance to really have some grounding. We're still kind of in the trail of that new moon, so you can still do some grounding and intentional type work for yourself to get yourself sort of thinking ahead, having a little bit of a sense of direction for yourself. It's going to be harder to find that energy as we get closer to the eclipses, which are coming up in less than a month, by the way. So this is kind of your chance for long-term intentions. I don't think we're going to get a real good chance to do that again until maybe late March, early April. And then things are just still moving so quick this year. So many um, shifts happening abruptly and in different directions. We're getting pulled in a lot of different directions. I feel like the new moon in Capricorn kind of was like a masking of the beginning of the year. Like it sort of gave us this like almost a false start. I think I've been watching too much football, but like a false start to the beginning of the year where like we thought it was kind of starting to go in this direction and we're going to start to feel the shift like already now starting to happen. So, I do think there's like a little space for clarity if you can find pockets of meditation and getting really clear with your own center. How do you drop into your own knowing? How do you know the voice in your mind that is your truth and your intuition versus your like ego-based analysis or fear-based way of seeing the world? Try to discern between those two voices and listen to the one that's clarity and intuition coming through. As we move forward from this new moon, which we're quickly in Aquarius vibes, there's more of a sense of things coming into, um, I'm going to call it like an instability. There's power struggle energies. There's things you didn't see coming. There's things being uncovered or revealed. There's a deconstruction of something that felt maybe built for the long haul that we're surprised to find it can dissolve. That energy is going to start to be happening more and more. Um, okay, so acceleration is the other word that comes to me as we move through the end of January and into February. It's like, um, I think it's gonna have a little bit of that quality. When you're driving, you're like on a road trip and you're driving on like a really straight highway through cornfields, and all of a sudden you realize you're going a little too fast. It has that vibe to it where you're sort of like not even realizing how fast you're going until you stop and check. So I want to tell you, grounding yourself with ritual or with check-ins with this is literally one reason why I made this planner is because I wanted there to be something tangible that you can ground yourself into that has details and information and a place to write and draw and reflect because the outer world is not going to offer that to us. We're going to have to create that ourselves. Um, I think our nervous systems are going to be pretty rocked for a while. It's kind of like a longer term arc of nervous system energy. Um, so finding that inner stability or steadiness or groundedness through ritual, through whatever your practices are for those things, that's going to be really important. This is not going to be forever, but it's like a big chunk of time here in the late winter, early spring. Um, there's a feeling of like multiple forces converging on a lower vibe that might be like a battling it out, but on a higher vibe, hopefully it's um, having a shared collaborative dialogue around vision. That's what I really hope in the collective space, but in your own world as well. There might be some pressure. There might be heaviness. So the things that get you through that kind of energy, go to those things. There might be a little chaos too. I mean, sometimes when I'm saying these, I'm like just reading the astrological energies. I feel like it's almost like too literal or ridiculous based on the reality in our world right now. But really, there is um, the chaos is dialing up. Okay. The nice thing is, I do think that there's going to be truth rising to the surface. There's going to be um, old stories dying fast through truth being revealed. Control dynamics are going to be shifting. Like the levers of control are going to become um, defunct, dysfunctional. Like the system doesn't work, the dashboard breaks kind of energy. Um, I think we can work with this consciously, though. I think if you can work within yourself for conscious deconstruction within any shadow energy, any unhealed stuff, any unresolved trauma, like all that kind of stuff. Like I know we've all been doing the work for years and we're like still squeezing out the last bit of the work, but anything you can put toward a little bit of that during this time is going to help you um, ride the waves. Um, it's a very Plutonian energy coming through for the end of January. This also strips away what can't go forward. So think of how that is in your life. Think of anything that goes away quick. Try to orient yourself to let it go, to be in surrender with that, because the cosmos is asking us to move forward quicker than we're ready for. That's kind of the energy that's here. This is also a time to be in your integrity, in your authenticity. That is the vehicle that will carry you through. I promise you. What's real will hold you. So I'm going to tell you, there can be emotional intensity over the next couple of weeks, which will only be dialing up even more once we get to eclipse season, but we're already going to kind of be feeling those vibes. So, what helps you regulate yourself emotionally? Can you see emotion as energy in motion? It's just energy, it's just information, it's just data points. Let it flow, let it move, move your energy, let your emotion have its own cycle. The work here is not to fix anything or to fix what's even breaking or what's falling away. It's to just witness it with honesty and integrity and from your authenticity. This is like a passage energy to me too. Like I see this like kind of, I don't know, like a stone tunnel that's kind of ancient in a way. And we're like having to let go and dissolve things that don't fit through this tunnel. But it is such a brilliant heart space. I want to say paradise. That's not a word I would normally use, but on the other side, there is something really beautiful. But we have to make it through this kind of tunnel, this pressure point energy, this passage energy. Okay. So the last 2 weeks of January may feel heavy, may feel intense, may feel emotionally charged. You're not doing anything wrong. You're definitely not alone. Reach out to your people, get support, offer support if you're the one resourced. We're all moving through a necessary threshold on some level. So making your own sense of your spiritual perspective on that will also do you well. The invitation here is not to rush or to know. The invitation is to stay conscious, stay resourced, stay self-trusting, stay authentic as the old structures give way, which will become the theme of really the whole kind of spring time. I promise there's good energy in the summer coming. But let me get into the chart itself and some of the details for those of you who like that. As always, you can reach me. You can DM me on my Instagram at Astrology Intuition. You can find me now online at astrointuition.online. I hope to connect with you in some of these ways. And let's get into the astrology now. We just had the new moon in Capricorn, and I'm going to share my screen so you can see the chart I'm looking at here. But my intention is to teach you more about the energetics happening, the relationships between the planets, and how that energy is sort of like a cosmic weather or a context or a backdrop that we feel. And we then, because we are humans and we're mammals with egos, attached. We feel things and we make stories about ourselves. And my whole goal is to help you not make stories about yourselves. Just understand it's cosmic weather, it's passing. It is something to work with. I love using astrology to orient to evolution, transformation, personal growth, to find a sense of meaning and purpose on a spiritual level, not just in your human, mundane world of things. So, what I will do is talk to you about the energies I'm picking up looking at the chart of the new moon. The new moon was on Sunday, January 18th in the afternoon. And actually, because it happened at the tippy tail end of Capricorn season, we're already in Aquarius season. So, I'm going to be talking about Capricorn because that's where the new moon just happened, late degrees, 28 degrees, 44 minutes. But actually, that's sort of like an old story. We're still kind of in cleanup a little bit of that season because it's not a real smooth transition into the Aquarius sun season. We have a pretty intense, possibly even brutal week ahead of us here. But I have some good news too, so don't worry. So when I look at this chart, so I always pull it for locally where I am in Colorado. And I love seeing this rising sun in the chart. This isn't like true for everybody in the world. It depends on where you are. But the chart I'm looking at has a 1 degree Gemini rising with a Pars Fortunae right there and with Uranus heading real close to that rising point, getting there by the end of April. And the interesting thing is, I hadn't even pulled this chart to see this yet, but I've just been like, the end of Capricorn season is a very Aquarian feeling time, even though the sun only just moved into Aquarius season today. Because we have this pack. You can see all these guys over here. We have this pack of personal planets that have been in Capricorn and are now kind of taking their turn, crossing the threshold into Aquarius. And as they do so, they are going to be passing Pluto. So Pluto's kind of almost like, I don't know, somewhere between a gatekeeper and a greeter and a bouncer, something like that. Um, so let me back up. Let's start with just the new moon. The new moon itself is always a time where the sky is dark and the light of the moon is not showing. So it's like we have to kind of feel our way through the dark a little bit. We can use this for quietude, for stillness, for an inward gaze. We can use it for things like setting intentions and just kind of getting clear inside yourself. But I don't know, it's a pretty crazy time in the world. It's kind of hard to focus like that. But if you can, great. If you can't, it makes sense that the new moon didn't feel that way because of all these Aquarian vibes happening. We've also had this pattern because we have a lot of outer planets in Pisces and Aries, that everything is getting, all these personal planets have been getting aspected one way or another in late Pisces, um, in Aries with a square. There's just been a lot of outer planet influence and conversation happening with the personal planets. I think of it like the personal planets kind of bring focus to aspects of self through their conversations that they have with these outer planets, the outer planets having almost like a personified teacher archetype element where they're wanting us to learn and take on certain new expansions or learning moments or shifts or awakenings or pivots in our life so that we can be more aligned with our soul essence, our own birth chart. Your birth chart is your original energy code. Okay, so what else am I seeing here? Um, I think you know that Pluto has moved into Aquarius permanently after dabbling in Aquarius for the past couple of years. It was late 2024 when Pluto committed and will be there until 2044. So we're talking about 18 more years of Pluto in Aquarius. So one thing I want you to just adapt yourself to is that every year toward the end of January, when when the sun moves into Aquarius, what we have is for the next 18 years, all the personal planets except not always Mars, but always the sun, always Mercury, always Venus, sometime around there, will be coming into a contact with Pluto. Oftentimes, one at a time, like we'll get a conjunction every couple of days, sort of thing, because Mercury and Venus travel very, very closely to the sun, and because Pluto is going to be hanging out here for 18 years. So this is going to become a pattern or a vibe or a feeling that we have. It'll scooch just a touch, like a day or two into Aquarius with each successive year, but it will be something that we are going to be dialed into long term. So this feels to me like the first real year where Pluto's like definitely got home base, like he's like dug in to Aquarius. And I mean, last year we had that to some degree, but this time he's been here for a full year, um, committed to the space, committed to the themes of Aquarius. And I'm recording a podcast. And this is how I do this. Thank you for bearing with my informal approach here. So, Aquarius, let's just talk about that general vibe for a second. So, it's a zodiac sign, it's not a planet. So it's like a constellation of themes and energies. And it has to do with awakening, transforming our minds, our ideas, our thoughts, innovation, futuristic approaches. It can be humanitarian and idealistic in nature. It has a fixed quality to it, so there can be strong opinions around this time of year about those said themes. So things to watch here are keeping an open mind, being flexible and adaptable, finding where that is in your personal chart and using that through this next 4 weeks that could feel pretty charged. It has an electrical quality. Speaking of charged, it has the feeling of excitement on a more positive end of that spectrum. It does have the feeling like the best of Aquarius is like, what is possible? What do we want to do here for the future and for the good of humanity? It has this really great excitement to it if we can go in that direction. But we also have to still always kind of finish out or complete the sign that came before it, which is Capricorn. And Capricorn is reality. It's an earth sign, and it kind of feels like it drags us back into look at the reality we're in. Can you really have that much idealistic hope when things are like this? Um, Capricorn energies are getting real stale on the planet. Saturn, the ruler of Capricorn, is about to, in just a few weeks, to start a whole new zodiac cycle. So I feel like there's going to be this real renewal of Capricorn vibes as soon as Saturn moves into Aries. But we have a little bit of time before that happens. So we're going to see the old guard really stand down or stand strong before they stand down. We're going to see extinction behavior, like people gripping and holding on to the old ways, like that kind of stuff is definitely going to be in the context. I don't really talk as much about society level stuff usually, but it's very much here in Aquarius season. Um, let's talk about you and how this feels for you. It's probably um, going to start to feel quickening and intense, both. The quickening is because we're now in an air sign and things just get zappy, fast, telepathic. The brutal intensity is because each of these personal planets is taking turns with Pluto. So I'm going to pull up, I love Jessica Lanyato's Astrology for Days tool. I'm going to tell you some of the transits that are actually happening. So Aquarius season officially began January 19th at 6:45 p.m. All times I discuss here are mountain. And then what we start to have, we have like a fuzziness happening early on because Mercury is in a sextile the last time with Neptune in Pisces. At very tippy tail end of Capricorn and tail end of, Pisces. And it's confusing. We're in a fog. We start the week in a fog. Then there's a renewal of Mercury. There's a bright spot. There's bright ideas, brainstorming energies. There's a Mercury cazimi on January 21st. That's when Mercury and the Sun are in the same place. It's like it warms up. It's typically positive, especially if you have Gemini energies, especially if you have Virgo energies. If you have strong Mercury in your chart, you might have a Mercury Cazimi in your birth chart. The next day on the 22nd, Mercury is conjunct Pluto. So it's kind of like we get this Cazimi energy, and Mercury feels like it's my turn, everything's going to be great. And then Pluto's like, I don't know. I think still need to take apart some of these we need to get rid of some bad habits. We need to clean out the closets. We need to make sure that you're not hiding anything under there. What's in your psyche? That's like kind of what Pluto asks. And Mercury wants to keep it kind of high level. Um, the same, you're going to hear me like repeating planets, but in different combinations because all the planets are just tracking and moving so close together. So the same aspects are going to be happening. So that same day, Mars will sextile Neptune. It's going to be, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. The world stage is going to be pretty ugly this week. I think we already kind of know that if we pay attention to the news in any form, but it's not looking good by the end of the week as far as clarity or restraint or, I don't know, heart-based, high conscious thinking by world leaders. Um, And Friday the 23rd, the sun is conjunct Pluto. That is like, it can feel like somebody, like an elephant sitting on your chest. It can feel like uh, the beginning of Lion King, when the clouds come over the landscape and like everything like kind of dies for a second. It can have that vibe of like that ominous life can't survive here kind of energy. It's short-lived. It kind of shades the back half of the week here into the weekend. It's probably not going to be my favorite weekend. Who knows? I'm also speaking, let me just tell you, don't be afraid of Pluto. I'm in a really intense Pluto transit personally right now. I'm fine. I'm doing fine. I'm actually enjoying using the way that Pluto deconstructs. I'm actually using that in how this personal transit is hitting my chart with another difficult planet. And it's like it's like positive for me. It's very, I mean, I've been doing the work, I've been doing the self growth for a very long time. So maybe that's part of it. But anyway, Pluto really wants us to have something better on the other side. So that's part of the sort of like demolition or deconstruction energy for something better. But while we're going through it, it's not fun. It's not easy. Uh, then we get to Tuesday, January 27th. I'm not going to lie, this day has an explosive quality with Mars in a conjunction with Pluto that day. Mars rules war. Mars is fiery. Pluto is destructive at its lowest vibration. So there's just a lot that could be coming across the world stage. So we really want to make sure that we are doing what we can, help yourself be prepared and grounded and resourced so that you can help your neighbors in your community and however the other ways are that you participate in mutual aid or whatever you're doing to be a good human right now, be ready to be doing more of that. I think this will be kind of culminating points of some of this uglier, more brutal stuff. On January 29th, on Thursday, the 29th, we have Mercury conjunct Venus. When Mercury and Venus get together, it's like we can align our hearts and our minds. So I have the feeling that things will be happening that will pull at our heartstrings and that Venus will come in and kind of soften um, maybe what's been more of the Martian, I want to say tactical. I don't really know what it's going to be, but the energy that is forceful, we might get to a softening by the end of the month. Um, that takes us to all the transits through January. It's a little bit quiet. There's a little bit of integration time there. And then we hit February and the next full moon in Leo is happening on Sunday, February 1st. You know what I haven't even talked to you about yet? This new moon in Capricorn that we're just through is the last new moon cycle before we're in eclipse season. So February the 1st is a full moon in Leo. It's not yet an eclipse, but 2 weeks later we will have our first eclipse. So February 17th, it is a biggie. It's our first eclipse in Aquarius in quite some time. It is we'll get to it when I do my full moon podcast in a couple of weeks, but just have it on your radar because eclipses, we can start to feel the weather changing. Kind of the vibe gets a little more raw, a little more emotionally labile. You're just going to kind of feel it. By the time we're in February, you're going to start to feel it. There's not much you can do kind of ahead of time. An eclipse has to just sort of come through and clean out and elevate, I want to say, and tune. Like I'm thinking of like radio station kind of vibes, like tuning to the right station kind of energy with an Aquarian eclipse. Um, Eclipses, much like Pluto, they have a similar energy to them where there's like a destruction to make something better. There is taking something away because it wasn't in your highest good, and there will be something better. So that there's a definite trust muscle, especially with, God, I didn't even tell you this. Let me go back to January. We have a huge thing happening, which I'm just, in the kitchen. There's people making food around me. I have a lot of people who live with me here. Oh my God. Um, Neptune is moving into Aries, which is what I'm trying to get to here. Um, I'm trying to find you exactly when it's happening. It's so funny. I've done like all these calendars of all these planetary movements, and they're like not in my brain anymore. Um, and I don't want to say the wrong thing. There we go. January 26th is the day that Neptune moves into Aries. So what I was starting to say is that by the time we're in the eclipse energies, there's something with Neptune being in Aries that I feel will be supportive for eclipse season because Neptune is going to bring a softening and a more spiritual layer to Aries kinds of themes. And Aries is fiery and I'm going to go ahead and cut off this podcast now since we have the toaster oven sound in the background. Um, but it's a lot. It's a lot out there. I'm going to hang this up. Bye. You are going to need to resource yourself. You're going to need to have your supports in place, get the lay of the land, follow transits, know what's happening each day, know that the energies that are coming in are not you and they're not yours, they're cosmic, but they will come down to the personal level. So it's a practice in detachment, it's a practice in breathing and regulating yourself when things feel impossible or um, more intense than it's been yet, which is kind of this spring. This is kind of how it's going to feel for the next couple of months, I think. So we have to do what we can to keep going, to keep living, to keep finding joy, to keep finding love and connection and all the things that make it worthwhile being here on the planet while the storm comes through. There are really positive, awesome things happening later in the year. I promise you we'll get to some good astrology, especially the summer. It's going to be good. I need to tell you this. Um, I do have my 2026 guide that if you want to grab that, I'll put that in the show notes too. It's $33. And it shows you three of the biggest energies and where they're happening in your chart. The first one's in later in February. So you would want to grab the guide before that. It's definitely, this is a time of tests and triggers, trials. I've said this a lot in the last several podcasts, but trusting yourself, trusting your intuition, trusting your own knowing, knowing where your center is, knowing what your truth is, all of these things matter more than ever. I also want to say this little bit that the more you can put yourself in the current present moment, exact space of now, right now, everything can be okay, even if things are hard and crazy and intense 5 seconds from now. The more you can bring yourself back into the source point of your own energy field, go to your high heart at the top, at your sternum, use your tools for nervous system regulation to get back here as much as you can. Um, I do believe that the more of us that can stay regulated and stay in our highest frequency, we can shift the energy. I do think that that's real and possible. I think mutual aid and real, affecting change on the ground also matters. But I think that energetically holding a frequency that is not fear, not joining into the fear or the division or the uh, absolute mind-boggling reaction that many of us feel to just about everything that happens these days. Come back to yourself. Do everything in your power, in your practice to come back to your own base and get yourself into a space of love, gratitude, presence, and get in those places as much as you can. From there, we will get through this time, as intense and unpredictable and wild as it is sure to be. We will get through it and we will come out the other side with a lot more possibility. I think a lot more love. I think a higher vibration throughout the world. We're it's going to be really important. I wanted to say this earlier, I almost forgot. This new moon energy, we're still in kind of the tail of this new moon. This is your chance to do your planning ahead because we are not going to really be able to plan ahead much in the next couple of months. This Capricorn energy of that steadfast energy, looking toward a goal, looking toward a summit, that grounded energy of Capricorn is still here in that new moon scape. And I want you to be thinking of a 27-month lunar gestational cycle with that intention setting. Think long term here. Think short term as far as like resourcing yourself and practically getting through this time. Think long term as far as like connecting with your future self, even like meditating and really channeling your future self, seeing that it's okay. You're okay. The world is okay. It's going to be okay somehow. And how can you set yourself up with energetic intentions, frequency intentions, feeling more of a certain way in your life? That's what I mean by intention, not like completing something or achieving something. Um, how do you want to feel? What are the main ways that you want your life to feel? And what you're going to see is how this unfolds over the next 9 months when we get to a first quarter moon. I have these dates in my planner, but I already put it back into my shipping thing, so I'm not going to get it back out for you. But in 9 months now, during Scorpio season, sorry, I lied, during Libra season, we're going to have a first quarter moon check-in. And that's where we're going to sort of be able to look back at this year and refine all the discombobulation, all the transformation, all the um, mind-boggling, mind-blowing, I don't know the words to say here. Um, but we're going to land in that first quarter moon. And I think it's going to feel um, sustaining. We're going to have a Venus retrograde after that. And that will kind of carry us, it will take our tenderness in our hearts and give us some space to breathe in our hearts again and not just be in this like kind of reaction, quick, on our toes kind of feeling that it is right now or will be over the next couple of months. So I'm looking forward to that. And then 18 months from now, we will have a full moon in Capricorn happening in the summer of 2026. And that's when there's a completion energy or a fulfillment energy. So that whatever you put into your new moon intentions now for how you would like your energy to be, do you want calm in your life? Do you want peace, love, harmony, gratitude? Is this what you're trying to cultivate in yourself? Even despite the context that we're in. Can you do that? Can you get there anyway? And then bring that frequency out into humanity. whatever is coming up in your list of words for your themes. In a year and a half from now, there is a chance that we're sitting in that actual energy frequency in the collective. So I want you to hang on to that. There's so much good support behind that this summer. Again, I'm not promising that's going to be pretty or smooth, but I'm promising that there's hope, that there's potential. We just have to get through this kind of brutal intensity for the next couple of months and see how everything lands and keep ourselves, keep our hearts open, keep our breath, keep our feet beneath us, keep our people close. Okay, with that, I'm going to sign off. Thanks for being out there. Good luck. Reach out if you need me, and I'll see you next time.